So walk me through this book and how much, I guess, Caitlin Clark's, was there any cooperation, any reach out to her at all, Christine, for this book?
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. She
Great.
answered 40 to 50 questions that
Awesome.
I asked. Yeah, she's great. She's better in person than you'd hope. Yeah, what happened was right around the time actually you and I spoke, which was the Olympic snub, which,
Yes.
by the way, is a chapter title in the book, and I have even more reporting on that abysmal decision, and I continue to report it. So there's breaking news within the book on that chapter alone, as well as
Yes.
there's lots
When
of.
Christine Brennan went into the Rich Eisen Show studio, nobody predicted what was about to happen next. This veteran sports journalist, who has spent 40 years working for women's basketball in the trenches, was going to write the most scathing criticism of WNBA leadership that basketball media has ever seen. And what she said about Caitlin Clark's real effect on the league will blow your mind. Brennan didn't simply condemn the WNBA. She really tore them apart in ways that made everyone in the studio feel bad. She showed exactly how the league messed up what she...
But within a few weeks, I was, just early July thinking, gosh, should I maybe do a book on this? I hadn't written a book in a long time, and this has become my 8th book, 4th with Scribner. Literally 54 weeks ago, there was no book, and now we're number 2 on the New York Times bestseller list. So, it shows what it shows, Rich, is the incredible power, appeal of this 23-year-old woman.
called their golden opportunity, proving once and for all that the WNBA just wasn't ready for prime time. Her comments are making big news in the basketball world, and after you hear what she said, you'll see why some people are calling this the most important interview regarding women's basketball ever. But what makes this criticism so awful is that it's not coming from a random blogger or social media person who is just trying to poke fun of the WNBA. Christine Brennan is a USA Today columnist who has been fighting for women's sports coverage for more than 40 years. She's been in the trenches advocating for female athletes when most media outlets couldn't care less about women's basketball. We're talking about someone who had to deal with years of people making fun of her and telling her to stop covering women's sports. She was even made fun of for going to the women's Final Four. Take a moment to think.
I've been caught dead watching women's basketball when I would be on radio shows, or you and I might be talking on various things. Guys would laugh like, "You're not covering the women's Final Four, are you? Like, why would you go to the women's Olympic gold medal game at all the Olympics I cover? What a waste of time. It's not good basketball. It's below the rim. They're rolling around on the floor. It's jump balls." These are the things I heard. I was laughed at as I would advocate the coverage of women's basketball, among all the other things that I've been able to do, men's and women's, right? Sports. And honest to goodness, to see now those guys that would have been calling into sports talk shows around the country laughing, they're the guys now buying the number 22 jerseys. They're wearing them not only to games, but to the grocery store and the gas station. They are Caitlin Clark's biggest fans, and they are the reason that
about that. This is a woman who suffered scorn for decades, who heard all the contemptuous comments about women's basketball being below the rim and not good basketball. She was there fighting battles that nobody else wanted to fight, lobbying for coverage when the entire sports media landscape was telling her it was a waste of time. So when someone like that, with repute and that sort of history, is criticizing the WNBA's handling of their brightest star, you best pay attention. And what Brennan revealed next will shock your mind. She talked about something that marks a full cultural revolution that nobody saw coming. The same people who used to disparage women's basketball are now buying Caitlin Clark shirts and wearing them not only to games, but to the grocery store and the gas station. These converted admirers, these former skeptics, are now Caitlin Clark's biggest supporters, and they are the reason that TV ratings are completely through the roof. This represents a full cultural shift that the WNBA was completely unprepared for. For decades, women's basketball has battled to acquire public acceptability, especially among male sports enthusiasts.
home attendance last year, first year of Caitlin Clark, was higher than the average home attendance of 5 NBA teams. I cannot even believe I said that sentence, and I researched it, and it's in On Her Game. Point being, this has absolutely been a sea change, the likes of which I did not envision seeing in my career. That's how big a deal, and I chronicled the whole thing, and Caitlin answered every question, tough questions, looked you in the eye, goes on and on with answers, goes off on a tangent, comes back and finishes the answer. I mean, she's
They're the same people that wouldn't be caught dead watching women's pop-on basketball just a few years ago. Then Clark comes along, and suddenly you have this unique situation in women's professional sports where conventional skeptics are becoming devoted supporters. But here's where it gets really annoying. Instead of capitalizing on this once-in-a-lifetime chance, the WNBA seem to actively fight against their own interests. And Brennan's book demonstrates exactly how unprepared the league was for what she dubbed the tsunami of publicity that Clark brought with her from college. The most shocking revelation came when Brennan described a phone call with a WNBA official about Clark's impact. What was she hearing in that official's voice? Not happiness? Not expectation? Not excitement over this amazing chance? No, it was something else entirely. Nervousness and concern about how to handle their sudden status. Let that settle in for a moment. You have a league that has struggled for relevance and financial stability for nearly 3 decades, and when they finally get a player who can solve both problems, they're worried instead of excited. It's like winning the lottery and being concerned about having too much money. The reaction was entirely backwards for an organization that should have been celebrating.
Likes Caitlin Clark. She gets it. At least I thought she got it. But when she did that, I mean, Shelton and Caitlin go back a long way because of Iowa and Ohio State through the Big Ten. And so, there's chippy play. And Caitlin Clark does not need me or you or anyone to defend her. Oh, she's not a victim. She gives it as good as she takes it. She's tough. She's strong. She's revving up the crowd. She loves it. And people love her for that. But when Marina Mabrey plowed into Caitlin Clark like a freight train, if that did not injure Caitlin Clark, as far as we know, although now she's had these 4 injuries, and the last time she missed a game was
this amazing success. But the numbers that Brennan dropped next are what really exposed just how much the WNBA fumbled this situation. She disclosed something that sounds almost impossible to believe. When Clark missed 5 games due to injury earlier this season, more than half of the WNBA's audience disappeared along with her. Not just Indiana Fever viewership, but the entire league's fan base. That's what she described as falling off a cliff, and it represents numbers unlike anything the WNBA has ever seen. To put this in perspective, Brennan compared Clark's impact to renowned figures like Tiger Woods and Michael Jordan. But here's the issue. Even those transformative athletes never had this type of impact on their respective leagues' popularity. When Tiger was absent from a major tournament, golf ratings would decrease a little. When Michael Jordan retired to play baseball, NBA ratings decreased a little. But nothing like the cliff dive that happens when Clark is out of the lineup. What makes this even more detrimental is that some of the aggressive play directed at Clark looks absolutely counterintuitive to the league's own interests. Brennan especially called out
my sophomore year of high school, so bizarre, absolutely bizarre what's happening, and so obviously disheartening for Caitlin Clark and so many of her fans. But when Marina Mabrey does that, you know who she's hurting at the end of the day? She's hurting Marina Mabrey and her earning potential. Because when Caitlin Clark is injured, the first time she was injured this year, Rich, she would miss 5 games. During those 5 games when she disappeared, more than half of the viewership of the WNBA, not just the Fever, but the WNBA, more than half of the viewership also disappeared. That is falling off.
This is like Marina Mabrey's attack on Clark, pointing out something that should be evident to everyone. When you injure the person responsible for driving half your viewership, you're effectively hurting your own earning potential. The financial consequences are truly astonishing when you really think about it. Every game Clark misses costs the league millions in lost advertising revenue, reduced merchandise sales, and decreased ticket prices. Yet other players seem more interested on making physical comments than protecting what Brennan nicknamed the golden goose. It's mind-boggling that professional players would actively work against their own financial interests. But here's what makes Clark a scenario truly unusual, and this is where Brennan's analysis becomes vitally crucial. She made a comparison to Tiger Woods that illustrates all you need to know about why the WNBA's handling of this matter has been so awful. When Tiger enhanced golf, that sport already had a solid base with commercial success and cultural standing. Golf has Arnold Palmer, Jack Nicklaus, Byron Nelson, Sam Snead, going all the way back to Bobby Jones. It already had the advertisements and the standing inside sports culture. The WNBA never had that foundation. They've been competing for scraps of attention and income for decades in a male-dominated sports industry. Clark isn't just raising...
Tiger Woods, I looked it up. When he would be out of a major tournament or missing something, it would drop a little. Michael Jordan, when he went to baseball, dropped a little. Others over the years. Over half of your TV audience just disappears. That is devastating to the WNBA and to its financial future, and all those players with the CBA now up and they're having these negotiations. They need to realize sooner than later Not that you treat her like kid gloves, but that Caitlin is to them even more important than Tiger was to men's golf. Because men's golf had already had Arnie, Jack, Byron Nelson, Sam Snead, going all the way back to Bobby Jones. It already had the commercials and the standing within the sport.
An existing popular league like Tiger did with golf. She's single-handedly creating public prominence that never existed before. The responsibility that comes with that is huge, and the WNBA has mainly failed to live up to it. This takes us to one of the most delicate but inevitable facets of this entire drama, the racial relations that Brennan addresses in her book. The WNBA is 74% black, and Clark is a white, straight player entering a league with a strong LGBTQ+ community. That combination was always going to cause some friction, but the league should have been prepared to manage it well. Instead, you had experienced players making contemptuous comments about Clark's influence, current players taking cheap punches, and a general sense that Clark needed to pay her dues before being welcomed. That might be normal rookie treatment in most cases, but when that rookie is responsible for doubling your television ratings, maybe it's time to rethink your approach. The Olympic snub that Brennan explores extensively in her book represents another ideal example of how institutions failed to recognize Clark's unique significance. The fact that the player fueling unprecedented injury, in women's basketball, was kept off the Olympic squad illustrates just how removed decision-makers were from the reality of Clark's impact on the sport. What's particularly irritating about all of that, this is because the remedies were readily evident if anyone had been paying attention. Clark's popularity wasn't some mystical phenomenon that nobody could comprehend. It was clearly related to her playing style, her college success, and her extraordinary ability to connect with fans. The league could have constructed entire marketing campaigns around that, crafted narratives that embraced the attention, and positioned other players to gain from the spotlight. Instead, they seem to actively oppose the attention and see Clark's fame as something to be handled rather than celebrated. It's like being handed a winning lottery ticket and complaining about having to go to the bank to cash it. The missed opportunities are just staggering when you really think about it. Brennan also noted something that marks a fundamental shift in how women's sports are seen in general culture. The guys who used to laugh at women's basketball coverage are now the most engaged fans. But the league's response to this heightened public attention has been entirely dysfunctional. Instead of welcoming the scrutiny and using it to promote the sport, they've often been defensive and nasty. The best example of this came with what Brennan dubbed the DJI Carrington issue. When Brennan raised reasonable journalistic questions regarding whether a hit on Clark was deliberate, the WNBA Players Association made a long statement demanding for her media credentials to be withdrawn. This kind of attitude reveals a fundamental ignorance of how professional sports work. In every other major league, athletes expect to be asked tough questions about questionable plays. That's part of being a professional athlete. The fact that the WNBA Players Association tried to muzzle a senior journalist for doing her job demonstrates just how unprepared they were for big league scrutiny. What makes this even more ridiculous is that Brennan has been one of the strongest advocates for women's sports throughout her entire career. As one observer noted, if you're going to attack someone who has spent 40 years advocating for female athletes, you better have your facts straight. The business repercussions of these blunders are huge. Clark's popularity has created opportunities for revenue growth that the WNBA has never had before. Sponsorship arrangements, broadcast contracts, retail sales, and ticket prices have all grown considerably due of her presence. But that growth is delicate and utterly dependent on Clark staying healthy and engaged. What Brennan showed about Clark transcending basketball is arguably the most crucial point of all. She's become a cultural phenomenon that reaches far beyond regular basketball fans. The fact that guys are wearing her jersey to grocery shops illustrates that her appeal reaches into general society in ways that are exceedingly unique in professional sports. You can count on one hand the number of athletes who have achieved this level of cultural relevance. The WNBA had lightning in a bottle and essentially wasted it because they were too obsessed about old power structures and internal politics. Commissioner Kathy Engelbert comes in for particular criticism, with Brennan noting how she has trouble even talking about Caitlin Clark without immediately deflecting to other players. The CBA negotiations happening now make all of this even more relevant. Players are asking for more money and better working conditions, but they're doing so while actively undermining the one person most responsible for increased league revenue. It's like employees requesting raises while denigrating the company's greatest salesperson. What's really distressing about all of this is that Clark herself has handled everything with incredible professionalism. Despite taking cheap shots, being excluded from Team USA, and dealing with continual controversy, she's continued to perform at an elite level and represent the league positively. She's been the perfect advocate for women's basketball, yet the league has generally failed to support her. The long-term repercussions might be terrible for the WNBA. Clark won't play forever, and the window for capitalizing on her fame is limited. If the league continues to approach their biggest talent as a problem to be managed rather than an asset to be cherished, they risk squandering momentum that took decades to build. Christine Brennan's book and her media appearances serve as a wake-up call for anyone who cares about women's basketball. The WNBA has been handed the keys to mainstream relevance, but they need to learn how to drive the car before it's too late. Her criticism shows exactly how the league missed the biggest chance in women's sports history, and the stats don't lie.